Hello everyone and welcome to this new CTO Talk. My name is Cornel Pătulescu. I'm Chief Platform Officer at Pentalog, meaning I'm in charge with products and technology aspects of our group. Group being acquired, that was acquired by Globant. So if you liked what we did so far, you should see from now on. So there's literally no project that we cannot do, no region that we cannot serve, or technology that we cannot serve you with. So yes, I do encourage you to go visit globant.com and learn more about us. That being said, getting back to the CTO talk, I'm just going to recall why we are doing this. So the vision, the initial purpose of CTO talk was to stress our idealistic view about technology leadership. What does it mean to be a technology leader? What does it mean to be a CTO? What does it mean to be an engineer, a VP of engineering? So we are going to ask the same set of questions to all the guests, and of course, we will get different answers. The value from those answers is you, the audience, who is going to give most of that value. So that's half of the purpose of CTO Doc. That's my responsibility. So I have this list of questions already available for me at hand. And the other half of the session should be your questions. So don't hesitate. There is a Q&A module here in Zoom. Use it to ask your questions. Don't hesitate. I will just find the right moment when to ask our guests to answer to them. That being said, Martin, please join the stage and tell us a few words about yourself and about Globant.
Hello, everybody. Can you see and hear me?
I can see you and hear you very well.
Perfect. All right. So first of all, thank you for the space. It's great to be here. As you said, my name is Martin Nanni. I'm the regional CTO for Europe for Globant. Globant is a software services and consulting company. We're almost 30,000 people strong in 35 countries. We're powering a lot of the digital transformations of some of the most beloved brands in the world. I've been in the company for 10 years and currently based out of Madrid, Spain.
Great to meet you. Now, we know each other for a while, and it's still music to my ears to hear all that. So I can confirm, great company. Thanks, Martin. Now, let's start with the first question. What is your definition of a CTO?
So my definition of a CTO is pretty broad because the general attitude at Globant is always basically whatever needs to happen. If it's sort of technology driven, that's my responsibility. If for some reason somebody needs to clean the toilet, hopefully that's and it can't be done before by anybody else, it'll be me. We're not very hierarchical, so we try to. It's basically a set of responsibilities, and if it doesn't get done, it's I'm the one that failed, right? So that's what I mean around the whole piece. Now, strictly speaking about the CTO role, we work in even not just the production people, but even the the leadership. Every piece of Globant is put together in what we call pods, which are like agile teams. Particularly the leadership of accounts or portfolios or regions or any of these types of structures of business usually have or always have a component of business, which is like a managing director or a client partner, or depending on how big the piece is. There's also a piece from operations and delivery, and there's also a piece from technology. When you get to that triad, always appears in every level of the organization. All the accounts in Europe roll into portfolios. All the portfolios in Europe roll into our regional pod, which is composed of the CBO and myself, and again the delivery and operations role.
Okay, let's go into a bit more details. What are the first 3 responsibilities that you can name here, and that's most of your focus so that we can talk on how challenging they are.
Absolutely. So I think there the three main things that that are sort of driving my day to day is first of all, I want to put together the correct structure of teams to be able to deliver the value that we deliver day to day to clients, right? Because as you grow in the organization, especially one like Globant, that's very much that has a lot of autonomy, and the teams sort of kind of, as much as possible, run themselves. The higher you go, the less direct input you have over anything that's going on. So what you can do as a CTO is kind of set the ground rules, put the teams like, okay, orient them in this direction. This is the composition. Well, here we need more coverage on this or that. Kind of that strategy over what the best team looks like in order to complete a particular task, and then let them run and make them hopefully help them get over the mistakes that are inevitably going to happen, but always give them that opportunity to own the solutions. So that's one piece, the establishing the structures. The other piece is which is similar, is setting up the ground rules. Like how do we incentivize these teams in order to deliver that value? And that changes on a day-to-day, not a day-to-day basis, but that changes as we're a very agile company. So we find ourselves having to switch tactics sometimes on a dime. And that also implies, okay, restructuring, but also putting together the incentive structures for all the different pieces of the company to work together in the best way. Because at the end of the day, we're always looking at the best thing for our clients and for Globant. And a lot of times these types of structures force people to look into their own little box. So basically, how do I help them step back and look at the greater good, in a sense? And then the third part, which is like 95%, unfortunately, of what I do is particular problem solving on like something's going wrong, particularly here. Of course, it's not something that I necessarily get into the weeds of, but there's a big component of problem solving, which is takes up quite a bit of my time. I generally find that I have to, if I see a problem, I want to go and I want to solve it. And I have to like force myself to step back, maybe start the process, guide the team, move in this direction, but then take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
Okay, good. It reminds me of something with the 90% problem solving, which sounds like everything else fits to my plate, right? So to your plate.
Yeah.
We were talking also in the previous sessions about the importance of being a translator, like translating business opportunities to technology, from technology problems or opportunities to business opportunities. How does that fit with what you've said? Where does it fit, and how do you see that?
So I think it fits, but maybe for a different reason than some of the other CTOs that you talked about. I think in a general CTO situation, most likely the like the solutions or whatever you're building are looking at how you make yourself more efficient or how you make your product better at what you're selling, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas my focus is very much on how do we make our clients better, right? So in that sense, there is a big piece of translation of working with the commercial teams to understand what the market is asking for, and how that translates into like how technology can contribute to attaining those goals. We try to be very much having the business need drive the technology, right? And the technology, in my view, should be completely invisible, and it should only be there in as much as it provides solutions, business solutions, or optimizations, or whatnot. So in that sense, I feel that I'm taking from the business the needs of the market, and then translating that for our technical teams, our studios that are sort of at the forefront of each of their particular technologies, and helping them come together to put together solutions rather than individual pieces, putting all the studios together and providing offerings for our commercial teams to go and take to our clients.
You've said something, a keyword called studios. So that's something very particular, I'd say. I think it's worth spending 2 minutes on it. What is a studio?
Absolutely. So the way that we are organized, the technology in Globant is organized, is by organizations that we call studios. And the way that I like to think about them is very niche, a very niche group of people that are super specialized in a particular set of technologies. So, for example, I know the data and AI studio, or the quality assurance studio, right? There's groups of people that have all their objectives and the types of activities that they do on a day-to-day is geared towards capacity generation, thought leadership, being at the edge of the envelope of what's coming next, all those types of things, and making sure that we have the correct structure with the right knowledge to provide the solutions that we need to provide, which are at a world-class level. So that's something that needs, you need to have a structure to do that, because it doesn't happen automatically.
Okay.
What that allows us to do is have a lot of depth. Like, each of these studios have a lot of in-depth expertise on their particular set of technologies, but at the same time, a lot of breadth, right? So there's a whole lot of different studios that are geared at particular, different technologies. And that allows us to, when we start a project and we have to, create agile teams, we pull the correct engineers and designers and whatnot from the studios to create the correct team for the job.
What's your favorite studio?
Sorry?
Your favorite studio?
So my favorite studio is the gaming studio. That's where I originally came into the company many years ago. It's also, I think, the easiest studio to get people excited about. Maybe it's less of a percentage of the people that can get excited over really cool, or innovative architecture, versus having AAA graphics and 3D and particle systems and all these types of things are kind of easier to get people excited about.
Good. We have a question from the audience if there will be a meeting in Vienna in the future. So there's nothing planned for a CTO talk as a personal event, but of course why not? So leave us a word and we will see what we can do about it. Please. Now, getting back to the question, so I hope for the audience it's clear what the studio means. Tell us a bit about the relationship with executives. So how does that work? How much time do you usually spend with executives? Who are your main stakeholders?
Do you mean internally in the company or externally with the client?
Internally with the company, like executive officer, finance.
Yeah. So the people that I spend a whole bunch of time with, probably more than I should, is the regional pod, which is composed of what we call a CBO, which would be the equivalent of a CEO for the region. Each region has their CBO, which is basically leading the whole thing, and has their CTO for technology, which is myself, and operations/delivery. So that triad is basically talking all the time. We have group chats where most everything that we do is very sort of agreed with the team. It's less of course, my focus is technology, his focus is on business, his focus is delivery. But most decisions we make are very agreed upon in the team. And of course, every time we go out to either the rest of Globant or the client, it's always as a one entity, right? So we're very much in sync.
Okay. I hope that helps the audience. Please, dear audience, don't forget there is a Q&A module, so you can ask your questions there. So I'm pursuing my path of questions. Going to something that we are used to call governance, but in the previous sessions and the way we communicated about governance, we were looking at it mostly from the efficacy management. Like, we are taking decisions, how efficient did we implement those decisions? So we have a strategy, how efficient are we following that strategy? So this is what we call governance in our session. So how relevant is that for you in general, and also when you talk with customers? Is that a theme? Is that something that matters, governance?
So governance in terms of like internally how we look at what we're doing and how that's advancing through time, or like, how do you mean? You mentioned it's sort of analyzing the results of our strategies. For me, that's kind of like analytical, which of course it is a very important piece of what we do because we're super data driven, right? You can make a decision thinking it's great, but until the data shows that it had an impact, right? It's worthless. So in that sense, I think we, as I mentioned, we were super data driven. So a lot of the time is looking at dashboards and analyzing if what we thought would happen happened. But on the other side, I think it's still when I think about governance, it brings me back to my previous point where it's very important for us to empower our teams. Like, in fact, our CEO always talks about the inverted pyramid. On the very top is the pods that are delivering value to the client, and everything else, like all the leadership that's under that, its only purpose is to support those teams, right? So that's why I was mentioning earlier that I feel my governance, in like quote unquote governance, is more in kind of setting up the field, drawing the lines. Like if you're thinking like a football match, it's more setting up the field, drawing the lines, kind of saying, but the actual playing needs to happen at the team level, because that's and I guess that's why I ask the difference between that's what I think of when I say governance, but it's a little bit different than maybe what you had in mind when you asked the question. If that makes sense.
What matters is your implicit definition. We are here to you give your genuine answers, and this is what matters and helps the audience. And I think in that sense you've touched it, because if it's inverse pyramid and there is so much authority to these people doing the job, in a sense they manage their efficiency, right?
Yeah. But of course, we all, the same way that I get there's other teams that are telling me how well I'm performing. We also have to give that visibility to all levels of the team, because if they're going to be empowered to make those decisions, they also need to see how their decisions are going, right? So that visibility layer is kind of external, not external to the company, but there's other areas that are putting together all the different viewpoints on, and there's always some KPI to improve, right? So there's always, but it's less of a that area is less of a top-down, hey, you have to do A, B, and C. It's more of, this is what you're doing, right? And you use that to implement, to see if your strategies are correct, and then to implement either different or the same strategies moving forward.
Good. And about decision making, no, before jumping into that, you said something about KPIs. Usually people that gather to these sessions ask if you use particular tools about it, or OKRs, or specific formats or structures about it. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience?
So this is also kind of very fluid, because I recently came to this role, like 6 months, 8 months ago. I was in another role in another country, in a portfolio, and at that point we were doing OKRs, but there is no top-down push to, hey, this is how I want you to manage your strategy. This is how I want you to set your own objectives. It's very much in each team. So here we're not doing OKRs. We're doing a different methodology. But it's what works in each team, right? We understand not just that, being in 53 different countries, we understand not just the business is different, but the culture is different. the different teams have different needs and have different places where they want to be looking. So of course we have, you know, the revenue and margin that the market you know, judges us on. Of course, everybody has that. But then what other pieces are we looking at, where it is that we need to improve, and how do we like, what levers can we pull to provide better results for the company? That's really on us. How we pull them, how we look at them, how we strategize around that.
Okay, good. I hope that helps the audience. I have a question about decision making now. So there was this situation, or not simulation, this idea, this concept of limiting the number of decisions that we take at the highest level of the company, so that we give enough space and it becomes reasonable for the people to implement the decisions. So the idea was not to have so many decisions that we take at the highest level, and we could limit that. Of course, limiting the decisions or saying I'm not going to do something is still a decision. What's your take on it, about limiting the number of decisions, or do you think that's odd, something you're looking at, or?
So I think it's definitely a valid point, and I've seen in several situations the effects of you know, constant decisions, and many times, unfortunately, decisions that go this way and then decisions that go that way, and maybe even if they're not so like juxtaposed or different between each other, the change of focus is very hard for the teams, right? To really push in this direction. Then 2 seconds later, when they get pushed in the other direction, it's like, well, why did I do this whole effort to go in this way? Though, of course, as I said, there's always going to be changes, and we always have to move in an agile way. But I do agree on the, you know, trying to limit, and I don't think I would say limit decisions. I think that there are a lot of things, I think there's definitely decisions that go through my desk that would be kind of transparent to a lot of teams, where it's not asking them to move in one direction or asking them to move. So for example, I don't know, spinning up a different team to take care of blah, 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 right? That's not necessarily going to impact the current teams and make them go in a different direction. So those I think are fine, but you definitely have to be careful about how you know, the cognitive overload that you stress on the teams. And you actually, as you were asking the question, I remembered a phrase my previous boss told me. He said, if I make 2 good decisions in a year, that was a good year. So if we can get to those 2 decisions and make sure that they were good, then stop touching.
If I make okay, few decisions during the year, that's a good year. Good.
2.
2, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go further with the conceptual questions. So many people many technology leaders might feel like technology strategy is their strategy, and there is also a point of semantics, but should there be a technology strategy? Isn't the technology strategy business strategy? What's your take on it?
So I think in a sense, yes, because especially, I don't know, particularly in our situation where what we sell is expertise, right? We sell knowledge in a sense, knowledge around technology. So it is very much related to everything that we do. But I do think that there's a separation. Why? Because there's some business decisions that I am not relevant to, that again, because of this, us working together very closely, I might participate in or give my opinion or whatnot. But if we are going to hire a new managing director in, I don't know, Thailand, I feel that my job is more to help put everything in place for our CBOs and his boss, the CEOs, strategy, business strategy in the company, right? So I'm an enabler in a sense.
Okay, very clear, very clear. Let's go further about technical debt. What is your definition of technical debt, and just afterwards. If that's a valuable metaphor still, or you recommend something else?
So we actually had a conversation about this the other day. So I know that we don't necessarily see eye to eye on this, but for me, and do we want to define technical debt first and then
Your
tell you what
definition of technical debt
okay.
first, yes.
So for me, the word debt is actually a fantastic way to express it, because and I'm going to define it at the same time that I say like how I feel about it. I think the same way that I'm about to get in debt to buy a house, and it's not a bad thing, right? It's a good thing because it allows me to have the house today instead of in 30 years when I saved up that capital. I think taken in that way, technical debt can be something that's of value. The problem is that generally organizations don't think of technical debt that way. It's not technical debt that has been knowingly acquired. It's been technical debt that has happened from sort of not super clearly defined things in the beginning, or less than fantastic people starting the project. You have a lot of different things where you can accumulate technical debt that was not intentionally accumulated. And in that sense, of course, it's not a great thing, but I think it gets a worse rap than it necessarily needs to. In a sense, if a certain amount of technical debt we cannot have technical debt, right? That's my.
And what do you include in the technical debt? Do you include also security, privacy problems, or the things that we've lagged behind, we are lagging behind? Do we include the design for you just to have to complete the definition?
So for me, it's and because I come from a product background as well. I even think that there's such a thing as product debt, and you could kind of consider as technical debt as well, which is design decisions that have been made either when the requirements were going to be different, or when the problem set wasn't as known, or that were just made incorrectly. And I would add that as well. Of course, I think if we have to define it very broadly, it's things that if you could have, for like if you could snap your fingers and have changes happen in your code base and your product and everything, they would make the product better, more stable, more more scalable, all these types of things.
Okay. Do things like accessibility join the conversation, technical debt, or environment, like things that we didn't do optimal?
So many times, yes, and I think, of course, there's a practice around. We've done several projects for well, here I guess it's less relevant, but in the U.S. for the Americans with Disabilities Act, where you need to have certain characteristics in the interfaces that you build to be able to be compliant with that legislation. So I think most of the times that I've seen it have, most of the times that it's been a high priority, it's been generally because of legislation around it. I haven't seen a lot of clients. It has happened, but we haven't seen a ton of clients that have a huge push for accessibility when it's not coming from legislation that's forcing them to do that, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, is the keyword here, I think.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this, also from my perspective. Let's wrap this. You feel like the metaphor of technical debt is useful, but is limited in a sense, or am I before getting?
No, I think so. What I think is that technical debt can sometimes be a positive thing if you're taking it in, if you're incurring debt because of the benefit that you get from that debt, right? It's definitely a bad thing, that's for sure. But what are you getting for that, right? I'd rather not owe however much money I'm going to owe when I buy the house because it's you know, it's something that you owe. It's definitely not something positive, but it's better. I took on that bad thing for something that I perceive as more valuable than that debt. Does that make sense?
So now with that, we've closed with the technical debt question. I'm getting back to the accessibility one because I kind of mixed them in between. So it felt like accessibility is something that you also think valuable and we should be more careful. We should be more attentive about. Is there anything you'd like to share more about it?
Well, I think it aligns very much to like one of the core values of the company is be kind. So be kind to yourself, be kind to your community, be kind to your environment, which is also, you know, the reason why we're well on our way to becoming carbon neutral. And again, it's not, of course, it's not the same thing, right? But for us, it fits under the same kind of umbrella of be kind, where we're looking to, we're hoping that we have a positive impact on the world, right? And that's kind of part of it as well.
Yeah. Okay. And you said something about carbon neutral. That lends to my next question about environment, and then I will start to take care of some of the questions from the Q&A. We have some. So you've touched a bit. What can you say about the importance of environmental impact of technology? How much should that be in our roadmap? Should that be in our roadmaps? What do you consider the most useful for the audience to take into account?
So remember I mentioned studios earlier. One of our studios is called Sustainable Business, whose objective is exactly that, right? Looking at how solutions can be developed in a more sustainable way, in a more ecologically responsible way. You know, everything from the power consumption to like the server farms that you need. Every piece of the solution, how you make that more sustainable. And we found that that's generally more and more. At the beginning, it wasn't, like when we started with it, it wasn't a huge thing that clients were asking for, but we see that more and more often where they are willing to, clients want to understand those things and want to take them into account and want to at least present themselves to their clients as greener, as more responsible to the environment, right? So I think that we're seeing that trend increase.
And one last thing about it, because this is so sensitive. So what's, in your opinion, the biggest impediment in doing something which is more environment friendly when we talk about technology?
So generally, my quick answer to any question like that is cost, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't always necessarily need to be this case. But for example, say we're putting a team together to create, I don't know, the new digital experience for whatever bank. Adding the types of profiles that you need, or or even the thought processes that you need to add to the process to say, hey, like, let's consider this, or have we gone over this way, or have we done this analysis of what this process is going to generate in terms of, I don't know, excess carbon or anything along those lines. It's at the very least an increase in time, because you have to, you know, spend time thinking about that. Potentially an increase in the people that you have assigned, because you need experts in those fields. And at the end of the day, in many cases, I don't know if many cases, there's cases where that has been a draw to close the business, like, oh, you know, you guys care more than these other guys. But then when it came down to, in some cases, when it comes down to actually doing the things, they're like, oh, well, you know, we can do it more ecologically later. We found those types of things as well. Thanks
for the answers, Martin. Now let's go to some of the questions. Oh my God, we have some. Let's take the first one. what is your opinion on the future of development? How different will it be 2 years from now? How about 10 years from now? Easy one.
Yes, super easy. I think the 10-year. I'll answer the 10-year one first because it's a cop out. I think there is a curtain that we can't see past, and that curtain gets closer and closer. It would be completely impossible to see when we were before cell phones existed that we would have, you know, a computer that was more powerful than anything that existed at that time, that was connected to every other computer in the world and that had access to absolutely, it was impossible to predict, right? So there was a curtain there that couldn't let you see beyond it, because even though the technology existed, we couldn't put those pieces together mentally yet. So 10 years from now, I have no idea. But 2 years from now, I think I can take a better stab at it. I think at least what I'm seeing from ourselves and from our peers, what we have been doing is using these new tools, you know, particularly around generative AI, to make ourselves more efficient, right? I'm not sure that in the 2 years that are, you know, that are the 2 years that are coming, that will change. I still think that at the end of the day, it's probably going to change the types of tasks that you're doing, but I still think it's going to be like a symbiosis between the machine and the human that provides something much better than each could provide separately.
That links to a questions that I saw here. So I'm not taking them in order because somehow you set up the answer in a way that in what ways have you had to grow to keep up with the demands of your CTO job?
So personally,
Both,
so
huh?
in my
Professionally.
so personally, professionally, and sort of on a the skills that I have type way, I think a big piece of it is, and this is the same thing with every step that I've taken in my career. Every step, the growth that has happened, and this is what I give as mentorship to the people that I'm leading, is the ability to grow. Half of that ability is to be able to let go of what you currently do, because you're good at, you know how to do it and you're good at it, otherwise you wouldn't have gotten promoted, right? So most people tend to, and then the B, you're used to doing that. So it's your autopilot is going to do the things that you were doing before you had that role. So 50% of going to a new position is learning how to let go and trust other teams and build the team that you need to take care of what you were doing earlier, so you can focus on the new roles. And then easy, super easy. And the funny thing is, it happens every time. It's not like one day you suddenly get good at, or at least I haven't ever gotten good at letting that go. It's in every change that's been an issue. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And then of course, every move up is learning to deal with more and more stress because the problems are always bigger. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Who was your greatest mentor and why? Do you have a mentor? That's all in yeah.
I do. So I'm gonna say my current boss. So I get points, but honestly, my previous boss, I'm just joking. But my previous boss was very much a mentor. I've been working with him since I was, I think, a product champion way back in Argentina, lost in some account, and for some reason he saw some potential, and throughout all that career, he's been, you know, betting on me and exposing me to difficult situations, and you know, he's a very tough guy. He's not like loving in any way. His love is to put you in the to throw you in the ocean and hope that you swim. But he's always given me that opportunity. He's always put me in those positions, and I'm super thankful for that. So yeah, that's I guess that's the mentor.
Thanks. I don't recall if you mentioned it. You moved in Europe, right?
Yeah. So he's the CTO for the US, and that was his sort of, I was the next in line for that role. But then I came here, and now we're kind of peers. But of course, he's still my mentor because he's always going to be my mentor.
Great. Let's go to the next question. How do you synchronize with the other CTOs of the company to ensure that you all share the same mission?
So the good thing is that there's not a lot of us. There's the global CTO, and then there's 3 regional CTOs. So it's a group of 4. And again, as most of the communication in the company, we have a chat group that we're always interacting with. And the reality is that mostly what's happening is certain sort of ways that we organize, or things that we want to put focus on, or those types of things. We discuss them together with the global CTO. We kind of maybe he comes with an idea A, and together we change it to idea B, and then we sort of try to implement that in the rest of the organization. But it's a super fluid communication. Yeah, I have 2 people on speed dial: my wife and the global CTO.
Good, great. Now I'm going to take a question from the chat from Jitendra Kumar. What's your advice for new IT consulting startup to increase sales by considering budget constraints?
So what we did when we were a startup, I think.
What's your advice? So
Yeah, and I think that's what I would say. Like, my advice is what we did when we were a startup, because it's what I saw that worked, and I think part of that is it's hard to phrase, but it's very much in the attitude of being putting impossible tasks for yourself, and then figuring out how to do them, but not getting overwhelmed by, oh, I'm never going to do this impossible task, or rather the attitude of looking at it and saying, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to get to this, right? But this is a first step. This is something that I can do that gets me closer to that. And maybe when I'm there, I'll have a better view of what my next step could be. I think honestly, the only advice that I would say around there is purely attitude. Like, very much, I want to take over the world is the only attitude that I've seen that gets results.
I really appreciated the answer. Let's go further to how much time do you dedicate to research?
Probably not enough. A big piece of research, though, there's a lot of research that I get from the studios. As I mentioned, part of their role is to in all these different technologies to keep the whole company abreast of emerging trends and whatnot. So there's a piece of that that's coming pre-digested to me. So yes, the answer is not as much as I should, mostly in this format where I'm receiving it from the different studios.
Yeah, so you are fed with the research in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Short one, do you invest in networking at all?
Yes, personally, not a ton, but we have, and even as a company, we never spent a lot of money or effort in marketing, or it was mostly word of mouth. Recently, we've been doing that much more, and of course, in this new role, it has a bit more of a component of networking than previous roles. So small, I would say 10% investment to networking.
There was a question about Globant for the 2024. What are the main challenges you anticipate to face in 2024?
So personally, they are, my focus is regional. So I'm really looking at what our European organization needs. And I see that how we were structured got us to where we are today, which is fantastic. But we need to do that. We need to do that transformation to continue at the rate of growth of the rest of the company. So continuing on the tech maturity piece, I think that 2024 is going to be the market is going to be complicated as it's been in 2023 as well. Hopefully better, but I tend to think I'd rather think negatively and be pleasantly surprised than expect the worst and then expect the best and then be surprised. But I think mostly my big focus is how do we, as I mentioned, how do we structure ourselves in order to provide. I need to give my salespeople and my business people. I need to give them all the tools they need for us to reach our targets.
You said all that almost smiling. So, what do you love about your role? That's the next question.
So I feel, and this is similar in a lot of the roles that I've had in the company. Two things primarily. One is you feel that you have a real impact, right? You feel that we're not hugely title based company. We're pretty much just do work and make sure that things happen. But when you look back and you see the things that you've been a part of and that you've helped accomplish, and it's something to really make you proud. Like if you see the things that we've done is very cool. So that's a big piece of it. Another piece is I'm a very curious person, and that allows this job allows me to be immersed in very, very diverse problems. Any sort of industry that you can imagine has so much depth and so many intricacies and so many specifics and so many things that are very special about it. So being able to be in all of those at the same time, and also being able to move from one to the other when it gets boring, for me is a huge plus.
And so that was about what you enjoyed the most. What about your contributions to the company culture?
So I think one of our strongest things is one of the reasons that we're different is the culture. It's kind of hard to explain or to put into words or to say it convincingly, right? But I think it's that attitude that gets us to the places that we get to. What part do I have in that? No more than any other person, right? My part in that is being one more example of what a Glober is, and I think. But honestly, I feel that there's even potentially people that have more of an impact because they're more vocal about it. But one thing that we generally, most 99.9% of the Globers that you find, you'll see that attitude that we can do it. Like, give me a challenge and we'll take it on and we'll make it happen. But I don't think I own that, or I'm necessarily a part of transmitting that any more than any other Glober.
Wow. Okay, so cool. I enjoyed this answer even more than others. So I hope the audience also enjoys them and gets benefits from your answers. Here's one. Where do CTOs go to learn?
That's a great question. If you find an answer, let me know. Because so I think and again, I haven't been in this role super long, so I think there's still a lot of things that I need to learn. My initial thought was trying to not surround myself, but find people in similar roles where you can have sort of those discussions that maybe you can't necessarily have, internally, and to get different opinions, and to, I guess this is also, part of that, where you get to hear how some of the other people in the space are thinking about things. And of course, many times it's not going to be applicable, or many times their experience, won't translate. But I think many times it's something where, I mean, I'm not a huge believer in any system, right? So books are great, and you can maybe get some snippets of wisdom from books, but I'm not a huge believer in any system, because I think the systems need to be tweaked for each organization. So I would say the primary place would be meetings of peers, where you can kind of discuss how different people are facing different challenges, but then take that not as gospel. Just take what helps in your organization, and leave what won't work.
Okay, I get to one of my questions and then back here. What's your definition of leadership? How do you define technology leadership in general?
So for me, what I try to do as a leader is help the people that I'm leading take over my role. Ideally, the way that my previous mentor said was, try to make yourself useless, right? So make the people that are going to be the next step in that company, give them the tools that they need. Part of that is identifying, like, where are your weak points, what are the things that you need to work on. Part of that is also identifying how will you receive that message. There's people that respond better to tough love. There's people that respond better to being super, oh, you're so fantastic, blah, blah, right? You have different ways that people receive messages, and I think being able to analyze the person, figure out what the gaps are in terms of what the company needs, and figuring out the communication method to use with them. And then at the end of the day, all of this leadership is investing in your people, right? Because you're investing your time, you're investing effort, you're investing, like, even focus. And I think so in that sense, I take it very seriously along those lines, to say, hey, first, I want to identify the people that I really want to invest in. Like, this is somebody that I feel could really benefit from some of the things that I can bring to the table, and even that could teach me a couple of things. Somebody that I can identify what their gaps are, because otherwise, if I can't identify that, then I have nothing to provide to the person. And somebody that can take feedback. So if those three things happen, that's where I really take on what in my head is really the role of a leader / mentor, to try to help them get to their next level.
We cannot speak about leadership without speaking about teams. A very quick answer about what profile is the most important role in your team and why?
I think that varies. I hate to answer it depends, right? But even in how we build those pods that I mentioned to deliver solutions, or any of the projects that we're delivering, it's never the same. Like, it's never that I don't know, sometimes it's the scrum master that has, like, the leading role. Sometimes it's the project manager. Sometimes it's like a junior developer. That's why in our methodology, we try to, the agile pod that I mentioned earlier, we try to define those rules that go outside of, like, what an org chart is, and define, okay, this is the person that is going to be watching out for the team spirit, right? That everybody is gung-ho and pushing forward. This is the person in the team whose objective it is to make sure that we're doing the right thing, not the thing that you do when you're tired just to get it over with. This is so we try to establish and identify those roles, and in different teams and different moments, the key role, which I'm taking in the I guess it's not exactly what you answered, what you asked, but for me, the key role will change not only in each pod, but it'll change in time, because different people will become more important. Like the guy that doesn't let the team quit is going to be more important when on crunch time, right? Where versus day one, he's not gonna make much of a difference. I don't know. I think that varies, and part of the flatness of the org is to allow for that, right? Is to allow for I don't own anything, right? I'm part of a team, and if my objective is to enable the team, then there's no concerns of, oh no, this guy's trying to take my spot, right? We're all pushing in the same direction. So yeah, that's it's very hard for me to position, and in most cases I've seen in actual teams, it's moved.
Martin, that was so interesting. We have 5 minutes more, so I'll choose one question from there. I've seen things related to OpenAI, and the other one is going to be for the conclusion. So let's do 2 minutes and 2 minutes, right, for the answers. So what is the OpenAI usage by developers policy at Globant?
So we have this is something that we've been working on for a while. I think the way that we looked at this has been less tied to because our strategy has been sort of in the works before OpenAI. It's less tuned particularly to OpenAI and more to models in general, right? So we have our AI manifesto, which was we wrote, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, where we started to put the baselines of how we want to interact with AI, not just internally, but towards the world. So that definitely set a huge parameter. If the question is more around, do we allow our developers to play with it? Of course, they can play with it, and we have instances, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they cannot, policy-wise, they cannot, publish any material that's copyrighted. That's super clear. But we also have, internal tools like Saya, which allow you to abstract whatever model you're using and then interact with these large language models in different ways. So most of the things that we're doing are going through our abstraction layers and using, either internal models that we have deployed on our internal infrastructure, but what we try to do is always go through our middleware, because not only is it kind of safer, but it's also what we're suggesting to our clients, right? Go through this middleware, which helps out with a lot of these security concerns and whatnot.
Thank you. We are getting to the conclusion of the CTO talk. So, of course, from the answers that you gave, only the audience can make more value out of them. So, dear audience, I hope that was useful for you. And anyway, the session was also recorded, so you want to replay, it will become available soon on pentalog.com. Now, Martin, one last word. If there is one thing that you'd like the audience to leave from this session with, it can be one of your previous answers, it can be something new, an advice, the thing people here should learn from you.
So I don't consider myself particularly any source of wisdom, but if I have one suggestion around, I read somebody, what advice would you give to future CTOs? And I think maybe that's around what I wanted to say, which is or the way that I've done it, I've never let my inability to do something stop, or my fear stop me from taking a new challenge, right? Which is, now that I'm saying it out loud, it's kind of a reflection of that attitude of, bring it on and we'll see how we make it happen. I know, there's people that say, oh, well, no, I'm not ready for that. I remember I requested to be a tech lead. My first job, I was, a beginner Java developer. 2 weeks into the job, a tech lead position became open. And I was like, I want it, right? And I didn't get it because I was really bad at that time. But that desire to step up to the challenge, not because I think that I will do it well, but because I think I will grow doing it. Like all the mistakes that I'm going to make are going to make me a better professional along the way.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for your time. Everyone, dear audience, thank you for being here and watching and listening. There is also a survey somewhere here in the links. So if you can give feedback for questions, you can look it in the chat, find it in the chat, or you can find more videos from previous CTO talks or the ideal CTO seasons. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.